is a slightly grey and grimbly day, and it is attempting to rain, but like the brave little soldiers we are, we have got our coffee. We are going to press on towards Bugbrook, Blissworth and beyond, specifically with Wedlock, Stoke Bruin, and I hope down the Stoke Bruin locks, which will then put me within shouting distance of my destination, which is not quite Milton Keynes Cosgrove, in fact, which is sort of part of Milton Keynes. In any case, there's not a great deal of fascinating scenery on this trip. It's through the pretty but fairly samey flats of Northamptonshire, and so I shall crack on with the journey. Let's go. Right then, after a very gloomy start, that's cheered up an awful lot, I have stopped in the little village stroke town of Blissworth, just north of the Blissworth Tunnel, which is going to be our next adventure. This is quite a big tunnel. I think it's the third longest currently navigable tunnel in the UK, and indeed the world. I've stopped here because my car is parked here, so I'm just going to go and check that no one's nicked it and it still works and so on. And then we will crack on through to Stoke Bruin. So let's go and do that. Oh, I'm also going to go down my weed hatch just before I go through the tunnel, sort of preemptively, just to check so that I can get a decent turn of speed to the tunnel. Let's crack on. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to brave the Blissworth Tunnel. My preparations have been made. I have taken the chimney off at the front. I have closed the well deck doors. Before I go in, I'll be closing these doors because not only is it the third longest tunnel, it is also significantly very, very drippy and in places quite sort of delugey, and long and cold. It does have this over the Bronson Tunnel, which is that it is straight as a die, so you can see all the way through beginning to end. Which actually has positives and negatives. So one, you can see the end, but two, for about a third of the way through, you think you're nearly there, and you just aren't. Hello, it's future Charlie here. At this point, I was talking extensively about how I intended to video the journey through the tunnel, and talking about details of how I was going to fast forward and so on. I then had a minor moment with the camera, where it failed to record any of the front boat footage for the whole day, which was somewhat annoying. And when I say it failed to record it, obviously I meant I failed to press record. So what I have done is, after the fact, I have gone back with my drone and shot some drone footage, so it isn't just all the Vox Pop footage. The drone footage is not the best because it was a very, very windy day, so I apologise for that, and you'll just have to pretend that nothing's wrong and that I meant to do it all along. Oh well, let's crack on with the video. And here we are in the daylight, the far side of Blissworth Tunnel, which is just around that corner there. There was a boat behind me in the tunnel, so I'm kind of going to wait for them to come out and see if they want to go down the locks together, which will save me a bit of work if they do. Till then, let's crack on. Right, here is an update. We have got to the bottom of Stoke Locks. This is the pound on which I will be stopping at the end of my journey, so we're very near the end. About 3 hours cruising, which will be broken up, I suspect, by a stop at Baxter's Boatyard to buy some diesel, and then I will stop for the next couple of weeks in the little village of Cosgrove, just on the edge of Milton Keynes. It's been rather good fun. So, I'm sorry it's going to end, but that's the way that all things happen. I've got work next week, so let's crack on to the end of our little tour of the Midlands. Right, update. I have stopped for fuel. I now have a fuel tank full of fuel, which is the good news. The bad news is that the downpipe into the fuel tank has rusted all the way through, so you now can't get fuel into the boat unless you put a tube down the downpipe and then use that. Fortunately, I've got the boat booked in June to have work done on the fuel tank, but it looks like it may be a lot of cutting apart and welding and quite expensive, but that's just the way that boats are. So we are now heading down the final stretch towards first Thrupp and then Cosgrove, and at Cosgrove our journey will be over. Let's get the last little bit done. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, that is us back on the outskirts, at least, of Milton Keynes. The journey is over. We are done, at least for the time being, and I'll have to think of some new subjects for my videos. I hope you enjoyed that little trip, and if you did, as always, please do like and subscribe, and I shall see you next week with something different. Who knows? See you later.